Sorry guys, I've lost my voice a little bit, but UFC 287 just wrapped up. I just did a 7-hour live stream during the card. It was good fun. Man, we got to deal with another Adesanya title run, huh? It's going to be tough to deal with. God, he's just so unlikable as a person. But good for him, dude. He looked really good in the fight. You could argue he won the first round. I thought the first round could have gone either way. Pereira was chopping up the legs, but Adesanya was landing good shots, and then Pereira was having success. It was a really high-level striking fight. I think Adesanya kind of baited him in a little bit, and then KO'd him with that right hand. So the real question is, though, what do you do in the future now? So that's what this video is about. Who do I think the UFC is going to match up with who? Who would I match up with who if I was a matchmaker? What do you do with Adesanya going forward? Does Alex Pereira want to do the trilogy? That's an option, but Alex Pereira got slipped pretty badly. He's probably going to want to sit out for a very long time, and although Adesanya is not the most likable champion in the world, he is active and he does like to fight often. And someone that has been waiting in the wings for a long time now, arguably hasn't really deserved another title shot. But it's Robert Whittaker, dude. Who's Robert Whittaker going to fight? Aside from Israel Adesanya, you know, Dricus du Plessis should fight Jared Cannonier. I think Robert Whittaker should fight Izzy. Just makes sense rankings-wise. Maybe you do a trilogy with Whittaker. I think Whittaker would have a very good chance at winning that trilogy. Or you could do the trilogy with Pereira in MMA. Or, this shocked me. This shocked me a lot. And I really couldn't believe what I saw. But Jan Blachowicz tweeted that he would be willing to fight Israel Adesanya at 185 pounds for his belt in a rematch. Jan Blachowicz, I would be very surprised if this man made 185 pounds. But if he can do it, I mean, has he really earned a title shot at middleweight? Maybe not really, but I'm not really against it either because he does have a win over Israel Adesanya in MMA. That could be a good for Adesanya's legacy. Get that one back. He just got his one win back over Alex Pereira. He could get one back over Blachowicz. If Blachowicz can really cut down to 205 pounds, I would be very surprised. But Blachowicz called him out on Twitter saying that he would fight him at 185, so good for him. Or you could do Whittaker, or you could do Pereira. I feel like there's a lot of options. Maybe Dricus du Plessis, but I feel like Dricus du Plessis is one fight away. We move on. Gilbert Burns beat Jorge Masvidal. Once again, you got to look to the rankings. He called out Colby Covington. He called out for the title. I don't think he's going to get a title shot after beating number 11 ranked Jorge Masvidal. I think he's one fight away, and I feel like what you've got to do is kind of exploit the fact that Gilbert Burns is willing to fight absolutely anyone. So you do Gilbert Burns versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. I had a couple of people in my chat say I don't think they want to risk Shavkat losing before he goes for a title, but I don't think Shavkat Rakhmonov earns a title shot based off wins of Neil Magny and Jeff Neal. I think he's still one win away from a title shot. And dude, Burns really could be able to beat Shavkat, honestly. He's really good. To be fair, the Masvidal fight was somewhat close. But aside from that, maybe Burns versus Muhammad could be on. Both guys would fight anyone. You could do that too. Burns versus Chimaev rematch, probably not. Chimaev's going to be fighting Paulo Costa. That's why I haven't got Chimaev in the title picture at 185. Because Chimaev versus Costa seems to be what they're trying to do. We move down again. Rob Font, another set of options because it just depends on what's going to happen. So you got to go to the bantamweight division now and look at Rob Font. He's ranked number 6. He just beat number 12 ranked. I don't think he's going to get ranked above Marlon Vera because he lost to him in the past. I don't think you do the rematch either. Dominic Cruz is probably going to fight someone else like Garbrandt or Figgy maybe, or even maybe you could do Rob Font versus Cruz. It's not what I've got. If Song Yadong beats Ricky Simone, I think you do Song Yadong versus Rob Font. Rob Font's already beaten Ricky Simone in the past, which is why I don't think we'll do the rematch there. Or there's another fight, Chris Gutierrez is taking on Pedro Munoz, and if Chris Gutierrez beats Pedro Munoz, then Rob Font could probably fight Chris Gutierrez, and that's the option that I've got because I do think Gutierrez next week will beat Pedro Munoz. The fight's literally happening next week. I think that fight makes all the sense in the world. If Pedro Munoz beats Chris Gutierrez, I don't think it makes that much sense because Rob Font, once again, has already beaten Pedro Munoz. You don't really realize how many people Rob Font has really beaten until you do go to matchmake him. And he's already beaten Pedro Munoz, so I think you do him versus Chris Gutierrez. If he can beat Pedro Munoz, if Song Yadong beats Ricky Simone, do him versus Rob Font. Okay, we move on. Kevin Holland beats Santiago Ponzinibbio. Holland probably wants to fight a ranked opponent. I don't think you give him a ranked opponent. He seems to like fighting older guys, and an older guy is Rafael dos Anjos. He wants to fight at 170 moving forward in his career. I don't think he wants to cut to 155 anymore. So Rafael dos Anjos versus Kevin Holland would probably be a pretty good fight, honestly. I think Rafael dos Anjos would beat him, though. I think he would just take him down and probably grapple him, because he is a very good grappler, is RDA. But I still think it could be somewhat competitive, and I think it would make sense too. RDA wants to fight at 170 going forward. Kevin Holland seems to want to fight at 170 going forward. I think that's a fight Holland would be keen on. I was going to do him versus Masvidal, but Masvidal retired, so I think you do him versus dos Anjos. Christian Rodriguez beat Raul Rosas Jr. Good win. Survived an onslaught in the first, and then come out and just beat a gassed Rosas Jr. in the second and third round. Very good performance from him. Rosas Jr., I think they rushed him, man. The problem is I didn't pick Rodriguez. I actually picked Raul Rosas Jr., but in hindsight, dude, I literally commented on the Big Marcel post, the guy that announces all the fights, that's on Instagram, that this is not a good matchup for Raul Rosas Jr. And I even said in my breakdown as well, Rodriguez is really good defensive grappling, and I just didn't let my gut make the pick, you know what I mean? But it's okay. Rodriguez beat Rosas Jr. Prospect versus Prospect. Let's do seriously, let's do Christian Rodriguez versus Christian Quinones. They're trying to promote Mexican fighters right now. I kind of match up Christian Quinones with a lot of people, but I think this would also make sense. It's Prospect versus Prospect. Maybe they don't want to do Prospect versus Prospect, but let's do it. I think Christian Rodriguez didn't take much damage, but he seems to have struggled. He seems to really struggle making the weight, so I think he's going to have a full camp. Christian Quinones would be a good fight. Raul Rosas Jr., maybe match up with Chad Anhaliga. In hindsight, it was just too much too soon for him. I think he would probably beat Chad Anhaliga. But yeah, Raul Rosas Jr., maybe take some time off. He's only 18. Let's make some improvements and let's come back to it. So yeah, I've got C-Rod. C-Rod won the fight. I've got C-Rod versus Quinones. Earlier on in the card, Calvin Gastelum beat Chris Curtis. And Calvin Gastelum, he beat Chris Curtis, who was ranked number 14, I believe. I think Calvin Gastelum was ranked number 15. He was. Just above him is Andre Muniz. So I've got Calvin Gastelum versus Andre Muniz. I know you could do him versus Brendan Allen, but Brendan Allen is going to be fighting Jack Hermanson. You could do Calvin Gastelum versus Nasruddin Imavov as well on the Paris card in September. I don't know how long Calvin Gastelum's going to want to wait. That is 5 months ago. I don't know if Imavov is going to want to wait 5 months as well. But if he is willing to, Gastelum versus Imavov in the Paris card could be good in France. I don't know if you guys know about that. Yeah, in September, 5 months away. But I've got Gastelum versus Muniz. Both guys probably somewhat willing to get back in there before September. But if Gastelum's willing to wait, Imavov, he could fight Imavov in September. Luana Pinheiro arguably beat Waterson. I picked Pinheiro, but it's one of those fights, man. I thought Waterson won 2-1, but hey, it was a close one. Pinheiro, she's going to be number 10 now because Waterson was number 10. I think she doesn't even really deserve the number 10, though, because she hasn't really beaten anyone good before that. I'm trying to find the weight class. So she's going to have to defend that ranking that she's got. And just ranked below her, I was thinking of Tatiana Suarez, but Tatiana Suarez is probably going to fight someone up here, but higher ranked next. So I'm thinking we do Tabitha Ricci versus Luana Pinheiro. I think both of them are pretty marketable. I think they could probably sell that fight pretty well, and I think that's a fight that does make sense. Tabitha Ricci coming off a win streak herself. She's on a 3-fight win streak. She lost to Manon Fiorot, but Manon Fiorot's number 1 ranked. I believe that a flyweight woman's flyweight right now. I think she deserves to maybe fight up the rankings. Let's have Tabitha Ricci take on Luana Pinheiro. Now we move down the card. Joe Pyfer KO'd GM3, and that's a really good win. Gerald Meerschaut's a veteran that takes out a lot of young up-and-coming guys. A lot of people picked GM3. Joe Pyfer looked really, really good. So let's give him another step up in competition. This is a pretty big step up in competition, not from GM3. I would say it's a small step up in competition from GM3, but a massive step up in competition from his Dana White's Contender Series opponent and the guy that he made his debut against. But Junyoung Park is 16-5. He didn't really take any damage in his last fight, kind of just dominated Dennis Tiulian. And if Joe Pyfer can beat Junyoung Park, especially if he can KO Junyoung Park, that means something, dude. That means he's really good. Like, beating GM3 means you're good, but if you can beat Junyoung Park, that means you're really good. And that would be a tough matchup for him too, because Junyoung Park will want to wrestle with him. So, Joe Pyfer versus Junyoung Park sitting just outside the rankings. Maybe if Junyoung Park wins that fight against Pyfer, he can get a ranked opponent. If Pyfer beats Junyoung Park, maybe he can get a ranked opponent, or just fight like someone that's just outside the rankings again, and then get a ranked opponent from there if they don't want to rush him too much. I think that's a fight that makes sense. Lupita Godinez barely beats Cynthia Calvillo. Cynthia Calvillo, unfortunately for her, might get cut from the promotion. Lupita Godinez, I think she's getting worse at fighting. I think Lupita Godinez is getting worse at fighting, honestly. I think... Oh, Taboli's not working. The Lupita Godinez that fought Ariana Canelossi a year ago is better than the Lupita Godinez that is fighting now. I genuinely think Lupita Godinez is receding. I don't know what's going on. I genuinely think there's something going on, but Lupita Godinez is getting worse at fighting. It doesn't make sense to me at all. The Lupita Godinez that beat Ariana Canelossi would have beaten Cynthia Calvillo by finish, honestly, and not had a close fight that arguably could have gone Calvillo's way. And you could argue that fight for Calvillo, honestly, because Calvillo was outlanding her on the feet. Lupita kind of got lucky to get the decision, not gonna lie. But someone that got unlucky in the fight was Michelle Waterson. I think Lupita Godinez versus Michelle Waterson makes sense. I think they're gonna try and go to Mexico around September because that's when they're gonna open up the UFC Performance Institute. Michelle Waterson Gomez and Lupita Godinez, they're trying to build a name out of Lupita Godinez, I feel. Michelle Waterson already has a big name. Lupita Godinez versus Michelle Waterson would be good. Also, it would be a very good stylistic matchup for Lupita if she chooses to wrestle. But because she's choosing to not wrestle, there's actually a very good chance Waterson would win that fight. So that would be a good fight. I think that makes sense. Nicholas Motta beat Trey Ogden. I'm just going to rebook him with Nicholas Motta. So, Ignacio Bahamondes beat Trey Ogden. I'm going to rebook him with Nicholas Motta. Because Nicholas Motta was originally meant to fight. Bahamondes just pulled out because he had a really bad cut. But Motta just wanted to reschedule the fight for a few weeks away. So it's not like Motta's really injured. Bahamondes took no damage. Bahamondes probably needs a decent amount of time though to make the weight. Because he is a big guy for the division. But so is Ogden. Ogden's huge for the division as well. But maybe we can get this fight going soon. Like maybe June. UFC 289. Bahamondes versus Motta. Maybe it's not a good enough card because that card needs all the help it can get. Maybe a fight night in June. Maybe a fight night in July, Bahamondes versus Motta. Maybe a pay-per-view in July or June. Bahamondes versus Motta makes sense to me. Steve Garcia beat Shayla Mbeki. Shayla Mbeki, I was really pissed off that he lost because he just lost because of bad fight IQ. He knocked down Steve Garcia and then just gassed himself out. Not even looking for a finish. He should have just landed ground and pounded. When it didn't work, he should have just stood up and then knocked him down again and probably would have knocked him out. But Garcia got all the time in the world to recover, and then he finished him in the second round because Shaylan gassed himself out. Steve Garcia versus Sungwoo Choi makes sense. Steve Garcia will probably try and wrestle Sungwoo Choi, but Steve Garcia is very chinny. This is a very winnable fight for Sungwoo Choi, and it's a big step down in competition from Sungwoo Choi as well, because he just lost to Alex Caceres, who I think is like bobbing in and out of the rankings right now. Joshua Culibao just had a massive win over Malsik Bagdasarian. Mike Trezano is also a very good fighter himself, so I think this will be a step down in competition for Sungwoo Choi. And I think he would be able to beat Steve Garcia, but Garcia would be live in that fight too, so be interesting to see. And then Sam Hughes beat Jacqueline Amarim. Really bad performance from Jacqueline Amarim. She kind of almost had the choke in multiple times. I think people are clowning Jacqueline Amarim a little bit too hard, but man, she just got no gas tank at all. And I guess that's kind of the risky run when you pick someone that's never seen the... Fine. Jacqueline Amarim had never been out of the first round before that fight, and that's kind of the risk that you make. You take when you pick someone that's never seen the second round. You know, you don't know what the gas tank is. Amarim didn't have a gas tank at all. It was a pretty bad display for her, but it's alright. I think Lomaluk Boonmi would be a pretty appropriate opponent for Sam Hughes. Lomaluk Boonmi's on a 2-fight win streak. Sam Hughes is only on a 1-fight win streak, but I do think this fight would make sense. Lomaluk Boonmi versus Sam Hughes. That would be a close fight too. I might actually pick Sam Hughes to win that fight. I don't pick Sam Hughes to win many fights, but I think maybe she could beat Lomaluk Boonmi. That's a good fight though. Lomaluk Boonmi versus Sam Hughes is a very good fight. I think you could just do that on the first or second prelim of a fight night, maybe in the Apex or something. I think that makes sense. Right, guys, I'll see you on the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new. If you like the video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.